Okay, so today we're going to be talking about an introduction to maintenance of church buildings and churchyards. And first of all, I'd like to just point out that this is the first in a series of 4 webinars. It's a church maintenance training series that we're running over the spring period. And the second session that we're going to be running is about developing a maintenance plan, and that's taking place on the 24th of February. The third session on the 17th of March is all about health and safety in your church building and churchyard, and that's actually going to be delivered by a member of the Ecclesiastical Insurance Group team. So they're collaborating with us on that. And then the 4th session is in April. We're still to arrange the date for that session, but that's going to be about stewardship of your building with relations to sustainability of buildings. And that's going to be delivered by a member of the DAC team, probably Stephen, I'm not sure, but probably Stephen, and a member of the environment team. So that'll be a really good one to come along to as well. As I said, the maintenance the recording of today's webinar and the presentation slides will be available on the diocesan website, and you can find it at the link here in blue. If you just go onto the diocesan website and look for the DAC section under resources and then go to the training page, you'll be able to find it there. And then I think that the DAC team are revising their website pages, and eventually that link won't be available, and it will be at the link in yellow there, the church buildings maintenance page. But if you've got any problems finding it, just email myself or Stephen and we'll be able to point you in the right direction. And I think since there's not so many of us, if you just want to email us after the session, and you'll get our contact details at the end, you just email us, we can just send you a copy directly. It's just if we were expecting, if we'd got, hundreds of people coming today, that might be difficult, but since there's so few, you can email us and we'll send you the slides. So just to run through the agenda for today, we're going to be talking about, first of all, the benefits of preventative maintenance, and then going on to talk about the key building and churchyard maintenance tasks that we are advising you to have a look at. Then I'll talk a little bit about resources, further resources that you can look at, and what grants are available for maintenance. And then Stephen's going to take over and talk about permissions that you might need for carrying out maintenance works. And then also talk a little bit about how we work with other professionals. How can you work with other professionals such as your architect and others, and getting their input into any maintenance matters. And then at the end, we're going to have the questions and answers, and hopefully we will have about 25 minutes or so for questions at the end. Just to say as well that we do understand at the moment that carrying out maintenance of your building is very difficult because of the COVID situation, and so we're not suggesting that you immediately rush out and do lots of maintenance. Obviously, this is a webinar to give you help and advice for when it is safe to do so. But just thought it was important to say that we're not encouraging you to rush out and take any risks. So. But first of all, let's look at the benefits of preventative maintenance. I mean, what I would say here, it's all about sustainability of your building. And sustainability is something that you'll hear a lot at the moment, because we're talking about sustainability of the environment, sustainability of buildings. So it's coming more to the forefront in our discussions. But sustainability, with regards to preventative maintenance, what I mean by that is, looking after your building, doing regular maintenance, carrying out regular maintenance checks, all helps to sustain the condition of our buildings, and as so makes it more welcoming for our communities to come into, and also will help to preserve the building for future generations and for a future worshipping community. So carrying out that regular maintenance does help to sustain the building in that way. But also there's another angle that you can look at, but by regular maintenance, we will actually improve the environmental sustainability of the building, because keeping it watertight, keeping it well insulated, keeping it in good condition does help to reduce our heating bills. It also means that we're reducing the longer term repairs that need and major repairs that need carrying out on the building. And of course, all of the repairs that we do have an impact on the environment, because we're using resources and energy to carry out those repairs. So preventative maintenance is sustainable in a way, because, you know, by carrying out that maintenance, we are helping to reduce our carbon footprint. So that's a good way to look at it, I think. And then finally, another aspect of sustainability is looking at our finances. By carrying out regular maintenance, we can help to sustain our PCC's finances. And by carrying out the regular maintenance and investing a little bit of money as we go along, it can help to avoid those major repairs further down the line, which can become very costly. So just thinking, you know, preventive maintenance, a big tick there, does help very much towards achieving sustainable church buildings. If you're not convinced about the saving money with regards to regular maintenance, you might want to have a look at this report called The Economic Value of Maintenance. It was commissioned in 2019 by Historic England, and there is a link at the top of the page here where you can investigate that report and read it in full. What the report actually concentrated on was looking at 30 churches across England and looking at their quinquennial inspection reports. In fact, they looked at 3 successive quinquennial inspection reports. Sally, can I ask you to mute, please?
Sorry.
That's okay, no problem. They looked at 30 churches and looked at their quinquennial inspection reports for 3 successive reports. In the first report, they looked to see what kind of maintenance had been identified. And then in the third report, they looked to see whether that work had actually been carried out. And what they found was in these churches who had poor maintenance regimes, the cost had actually, you know, the cost of the maintenance repairs and the major repairs had actually increased rapidly. And they had been liable for a lot of costs over the succession of those 3 reports because they hadn't attended to the maintenance in a timely manner. And also because some of them had delayed repairs for whatever reasons, but by delaying the repairs, again increased the eventual cost of maintaining and repairing the building, because those small initial repairs went on to lead to consequential damage in other parts of the building. And of course that, you know, increases the cost overall. And what they also found out, I think we all know this, that attending to maintenance of roof and rainwater goods is probably one of the most important things that we can do on a regular basis, because those particular areas, if we neglect them, they can be the primary cause of defects in our building and lead on to the consequential decay of the building, and of course more cost. So that's a big, you know, it's a big incentive, I think, for making sure that you do carry out regular maintenance. And this is my mantra. If you take nothing away from today, try and take this away, that a stitch in time does save 9. You know, a little bit invested, a little bit of money regularly invested will help save money in the long run. So let's have a look at what we think are the key elements of regular maintenance and preventative maintenance. There are 3 elements that we think are key. First of all, inspection. That's looking at your building, regularly looking around your building and spotting problems, identifying things that need further investigation. Then actually carrying out the regular maintenance. This is the doing part. And I'll be talking about some of those regular maintenance tasks next. And then if there are minor repairs that need carrying out, seeing whether you can actually tackle those minor repairs at an early stage. As we saw in that report from Historic England, not attending to those minor repairs at an early stage can cause consequential damage on your building, and it can lead to a much more expensive situation in the future. So, you know, trying to do these three things on a regular basis is the ideal. Not always the easiest thing to do, but it is best practice. And today I'm going to be having a look at these areas of maintenance tasks that we think are the most important ones to tackle. They're by no means everything that you should be doing in terms of regular maintenance, but we can't talk about everything in the webinar, and these are the most important ones. So we'll be looking at inspection and maintenance planning. We'll be looking at rainwater goods maintenance, church heating maintenance, maintenance of your churchyard and high level maintenance, and also testing of your lightning protection system. So we'll be going through these areas in a little bit more detail. So let's have a look at inspection and maintenance planning first of all. I did mention that inspecting your church building and churchyard were, you know, the first of the elements of regular preventative maintenance. Having a good look at your building, having a walk round, take somebody else with you when it's safe to do so, obviously, and record what you can see. Have a look at every aspect of the building, inside and out, and look for any problems. And record them down on a big piece of paper so that you can review them later and think about what the priorities are. There may be a lot of things that you notice. Take images as well if you can, so that you can remember what you'd actually saw. And also it helps to monitor what a situation or what a problem might be as time goes on. And if you're not sure where to start in terms of inspecting your building, what areas to look at, you can have a look at this maintenance plan checklist template, which is in the blue link here. And this is a maintenance template that has been developed quite recently by the National Churches Trust, Historic England, Society for the Protection of Ancient Buildings. They've all come together to produce this checklist. And if you go to that link, you can go to the website and you can download that document. And it's basically a checklist. You can go walk around your building, looking at the different areas it suggests, and tick off the areas that you've looked at, record any notes. And you can also, you know, helps you afterwards when you come back, you can think about the cost of each of those elements to tackle. And as a PCC, you know, how you're going to be able to find the finances to do that. Another tool that you can use is the maintenance calendar. Now, this is something that is on Church Care. The maintenance calendar is a document that splits it up into 12 months and recommends what kind of activities that you can be doing each month. So in January, it may be that you can have a look at your heating system, check your heating system, check the guttering after heavy snowfall. And then in February, there may be some other activities you can do. So another really good one to have a look at and download if you're not sure where to start. But I'm sure most of you are already, you know where to start, and you're already thinking about your building and you know the things that need carrying out. So that's inspection. Let's have a look at rainwater goods maintenance itself. Now, I've included some images here. Some of them are quite horror images, I think. We don't want to be seeing this, but this is to give you an idea of how to identify problems with the rainwater goods. We all know that rainwater goods are actually designed to carry water away from the building, and really they're their first line of defence to keep water out of the church building. And during cold weather, when the water gets trapped, gets blocked, it can actually freeze and then expands, and then you get damage to the rainwater goods themselves. And then you will start to see things like water running down the walls, water running over the top of the gutters. And in this picture on the left, the black downpipe, you can see the water running over there and the saturation of the brickwork at the back. It may be that the hopper itself is blocked or the guttering above there is cracked. But if you see this kind of thing, you know that there is a problem with the guttering or with the hopper. So that needs further investigation. Similarly, if you get to a situation with the middle image where your guttering is actually blocked so much with vegetation like this is a real horror picture, but it may be that you can see some vegetation growing in your guttering. Again, they need clearing out so that the water can run freely. And the third image there might not be quite as obvious. There's a downpipe there that looks like it's a bit neglected, maybe needs a lick of paint, but you can't really see a lot of water anywhere, but you can see all of the green moss and the white salts on the brickwork. And again, that's an indication that there may be a leak there somewhere in the downpipe or further higher up. And to support the growth of moss on the brickwork there. So that's a telltale sign. One little tip actually is if you might have a damage behind the downpipe and you can't see it easily. If you use a mirror behind a downpipe, it might help you to spot problems there and some leaks. But that's the sort of things that you might see obviously on your inspection of the building. At a lower level, have a look at your rainwater goods, look at the drains, the bottom of your downpipes, make sure that the area isn't blocked up with vegetation and soil, things that have been blown in there, if there's any rusty, broken downpipes. This is something that you can do quite easily, and you can clear them out yourself quite easily with the help of willing volunteers in the congregation. But this is something that you can do on a regular basis, and something that we do at home as well, isn't it? We go around and check our drains. So that's checking at lower level. Of course, it may be difficult when you're walking around your building externally to see any problems. Maybe all looks okay, but when you're looking on the inside of the building, there are again telltale signs that you've got some problems. The brickwork image there on the left with the white salts on the brickwork, again, that is showing that you have a damp problem. What's actually happening there is that the water is coming through the brickwork and it's dissolving the brickwork and carrying the salts onto the surface of the brickwork. And you can usually brush these away and they keep coming because the brickwork continues to dissolve with the water. So that's a surefire tale. That's a real kind of, what's the word I'm missing? Showing you that you've got a problem there. So that it might be that it's at a higher level, that problem, or it may be a damp problem with a blocked drain. Again, on the other images, it's looking at your ceilings. Can you see damp patches before it gets to this stage where the plaster is actually cracking and dropping off? So have a look round to see if there are any areas inside a building that might indicate a problem on the roof that you can't easily see. A really good little video that you could watch that's been produced by the National Churches Trust. It's just a short video, but it talks about water ingress into your building and why it's bad for your building. And we'll show you some other images and give you some other tips. So it's worth having a look at this one. And when you get the presentation slides, you'll be able to click on this and it will take you through to the video. So moving on to actual carrying out the clearance of the guttering. It may be something that you can do yourself if you spot that you've got blocked gutters and they are at a very low level, and you have safe access to the roof. And I do want to emphasize that it must be safe. You've got to think health and safety here. If you have safe access to the roof, it may be possible for you to clear some of the gutters yourself. And I have an image here. This is a church over in Liverpool, actually, where they did have safe access to the roof. The trees were very close to the building all the way around, and they continually had this problem with leaves blowing into the the gutters, and are able to get up onto the roof and clear them out, bag them up, and bag up the debris and dispose of it safely. What I would say though is that this gentleman here is not properly dressed for clearing gutters. I just thought I'd mention that in case you think that wearing a pink tie is what you need to do when you're clearing gutters. Obviously wear suitable equipment. This gentleman was just posing for me for this photograph, but do wear the proper health and safety equipment if you are going to do clear some of the gutters yourself. But again, I can't stress enough, health and safety is what you need to be thinking here. And if you are using a ladder, make sure that there's two of you and there's someone at the bottom actually holding the ladder. And of course, what I would be recommending is, wherever possible, use professional contractors to clear, to do gutter clearances for you. Now, it may be that you have a contract with a local contractor already, somebody that you use on a regular basis. That's fine, you know, use your local contractors. Just make sure though that they have got the right insurances. Public liability insurance is very important for any contractors that come and work on the premises, and that they also have a very good health and safety policy, and that they are following health and safety practices, and they're cordoning off the area if they're doing any work. Because when they're carrying out the work on your gutters, it is dangerous for people to be in the area around the bottom of the of where they're working. So just make sure that they do have insurances in case anything does go wrong and they damage something else while they're on the roof. That does happen. And that they are working safely. It may be that your church is a very tall church and that some of the guttering is inaccessible, even from going on the roof. Or a contractor going on a roof, and in which case you may actually need to get a specialist contractor in who uses rope access. This church actually was in Sheffield, and I don't think they'd had their really high guttering cleared for many years, and they had to get a specialist contractor to come in who used ropes to get up to those inaccessible gutters. So you know, that I am going to be suggesting to you later on where you can find specialist contractors or professional contractors that have been vetted and accredited and have got the correct insurances and health and safety practices. I'm going to be suggesting where you can find them. I know also that the DAC and Stephen will have lists of contractors that he can suggest as well. So please do get in touch if you are finding it difficult to find a contractor for this. So that's looking at guttering, rainwater goods. Now looking at high level maintenance. This is a bit more difficult to do because of it being at high level, but it's something that you can do again by walking around and inspecting the building and looking up, and perhaps, you know, using a pair of binoculars to look more closely to see if there are any problems on the roof. Maybe after a heavy snowfall, some of the slates might become loose, some of the flashings might be damaged, coming away. You can't always see that some of the valley gutters are blocked. I mean, in that image there's some footballs up there, which I think have been there for quite a long time and nobody spotted them. But it may be as well that the brickwork, there's some the tower needs repointing, and some areas need repointing around the building. So have a look with the binoculars, see if you can spot any problems. Again, you might have spotted something inside the church which would suggest a problem up higher. So go outside, have a look with your binoculars, see if you can spot anything. And if you are having problems, you still can't see what the problem is, call in a professional contractor again to do an inspection. I know that they can do inspections now with drones as well, and that's something that is becoming more and more common. It does cost a little bit of money to have that done, obviously. So it may be that your local contractor can come in and do that for a lower cost. And it may be that something that's already been highlighted in your QI inspection that you need to attend to, and that you haven't got around to doing. So that's high level maintenance. Something that some of you might need to do. Not every church needs a lightning conductor and has a lightning protection system in place. But some of the taller churches do. And if you are the tallest building in your particular area, it's likely that you will have a lightning conductor there. And it's, churches are particularly vulnerable to lightning strikes because they do tend to be one of the highest buildings in the area. And if you are struck by lightning, if the building is struck by lightning, it is dangerous. It can cause a fire in your building, and it can lead on to damage to the masonry and to your electrics in the church as well. So it is important that you have a regular inspection of the lightning protection system. How often you have the inspection done differs. There is a British standard for LPS testing, and that, I think, says at least every 4 years you have to have a regular inspection of the system. But your insurance company might say every 2 years. So go and check with your insurers and see what they suggest. And if you haven't had a lightning protection inspection recently, please do investigate that. And it doesn't cost that much to have it done. Make sure, though, that the contractor that you use to carry out the LPS test is either approved by Atlas, is an NIC EIC approved contractor, or an ECA approved contractor. And also, it may be worth your while having a read of a recent document that EIG and Ecclesiastical Insurance have produced. At the blue link there, you can have a look at that document, and it explains all about lightning protection inspections. And also, it does suggest as well that even if you don't have a proper test done every year, that you should have a visible check of your lightning conductors every year. So that's you walking around and having a look up to see if you can spot any problems, if it's an obvious break in the conductor. So something as well is when you do have them tested, if you are having it tested every 2 years or every year, then have it done at a different time every year. So if you have it done August 1 year, the next year have it done in September, and the next year have it done in October. And that way you can test the lightning conductor with respect to the resistivity of the ground every year of every month of the year, because it does change throughout the year. So testing its sufficiency and compliance is important. So please do have a look at that document, and also contact your insurer if you're not sure about that. Moving on to maintenance of church heating systems. An annual boiler inspection is something that you need to have done. That is a requirement, statutory requirement. Checking of your heating system as well. And of course, regularly check that throughout the year. Keep an eye on it. Especially in winter, you're more likely to have water leaks. So lagging all your pipes is important. That's a passive way of trying to prevent problems with the system and prevent leaks. Stopping your pipes from freezing, basically. Any exposed pipes, lag them. And of course, in the boiler room, if you do have a room with the boiler in it, that tends to be the warmest room in the building. And the pipes in there tend not to be lagged, and that's why it's so warm. So it's a good idea to lag them there as well, because that helps the efficiency of your heating system. You don't want all the heat in that room, you want it to be going out to the rest of the building. Another thing that you can do, which is more of an active way of dealing with managing a heating system and protecting against frost, is having a frost protection setting itself. That's a little, that's a way where you can actually, you keep the heating going, but set your heating to a very low temperature. So you're still having water going through, but it's at a low temperature, and it will stop it from freezing. And there is a document that's just come out from the Church of England, frost protection setting document. You can click on that link and it will take you through to the document, and you can read that in more detail. Locating the stopcock in your building as well is a good thing to do. Know where it is, make sure other people know where it is as well. So if you do have a leak, you're able to stop the water and isolate it, and help to prevent the damage, any water damage throughout the building. Having a carbon monoxide monitor as well is something that you should be having in the building. If it's a public building, obviously a public building, people coming in, you need to protect against carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide monitors need their batteries changing regularly, so test them regularly. I think they only last for about 5 or 7 years anyway, the actual monitors themselves. So if you've had one there for a long time, it might need replacing. There is a link here at the bottom to Ecclesiastical. Again, there's a really good little article there to look at risk management of your heating systems. You can click on that link and read that article. And I think the important thing with heating is, you know, remain vigilant throughout the year at all times. So looking at your churchyard now, and what kind of things can you do to maintain the churchyard on a regular basis? Well, obviously, this time of year, clear the paths and steps. They get frosty, and there's a slip hazard. There are lots of other health and safety risks. Even just leaves in the autumn can make them very slippy. I slipped recently in a churchyard where the path was slippy with a very fine moss growing over it and a sort of slime over it. And I wasn't aware, you know, to begin with, that it was slippy. And so that, you know, other people can have a serious fall by walking around the churchyard. The particular place I fell was a churchyard. Actually, wasn't. It was actually a closed churchyard, and it was maintained by the local authority. But the church didn't have any responsibility for actually clearing the churchyard itself or dealing with it. It was sort of highlighting the risks to the visitors, but they contacted a local authority to try and sort that out. And it was quite difficult to get the local authority to do anything to it. So I am aware that there are problems there, but there may be some things that you can do to make the churchyard safer. It may be that you have trees and lots of them. And in this particular image here, the trees themselves, you know, they're actually causing damage to the monuments themselves with the tree roots. And that is a problem. And the tree roots as well, if they're close, if the trees are close to the building, they can cause damage from the roots or from the branches themselves touching the brickwork. So if you do have that problem, it does need to be assessed. What I would say though is that you must think about the trees that you have. You can't just go and cut down trees or have work done in trees in your churchyard. You must actually contact the diocese to get further advice. Trees are protected, and you may have some very special trees in your churchyard that haven't been identified as having special status, and it is actually illegal to cut down trees or damage trees that have protected status. So what I would suggest is that you do contact and not contact the Arboricultural Association, but make sure that if you do have any assessments done of your trees, that it's carried out by someone, a professional consultant who is approved by the AA or the Arboricultural Association or has ICF accredited status. And I've put a couple of links here to the AA and the Institute of Chartered Foresters that you can have a look at. And the Arboricultural Association does have a directory on it of consultants. It also has a directory of tree surgeons as well, who can carry out the work on your trees. Now, it is important to, if you are having any tree surgery done, that the work has actually been specified in a report, and that the trees have been assessed as to, you know, their status. Tree surgeons who have been approved by the Arboricultural Association will know how to deal with those trees, and they will act on the information that has been given in the specialist report. It may be, as in this particular image here, that you have a tree which is posing a threat to public safety. You can see this tree is damaged, it's liable that the branch is going to fall off. The other image is showing a tree which has grown over onto the pathway and posing a threat to safety. In this situation, it may be possible to actually do the minimum you need to make it safe while you wait for a report to be carried out. So, but of course, just do the minimum that you need to do. There is further guidance on trees on the DAC pages of the diocesan website. So I would, you know, suggest that you you have a look at them. So I said earlier that I was going to talk about resources and grants. And so I wanted to talk here about Maintenance Booker. This is a maintenance service, an online maintenance service for churches that was set up by the National Churches Trust a few years ago. What the online service is you can go on there and you can get some free, no obligation quotes from contractors who have been vetted by the National Churches Trust and by 2x2, who are one of the Church of England's procurement companies. And you can put in you can register first of all for Maintenance Booker yourself, and then once you've registered, you can look at the services available, the maintenance services available, and they do lightning conductor inspections, they do gutter clearances, they do high-level inspections and repairs, repointing, all of that sort of work, tree surgery as well, and tree risk assessments. You can have a look at what they offer, get some quotes from the contractors. They're all fully insured, the contractors, and they're all health and safety compliant. So if you are worried about, you know, finding a contractor who is safe and who is, has specialist services and has experience of working on churches, then have a look at Maintenance Booker. It's a good place to start. They also offer some grants as well for maintenance, which can be very useful. And these are some of the grants that the National Churches Trust offer. I apologise for the amount of text on here, but it's to try and give you an idea of what they offer. You can click into the Gateway in blue, foundation grants for maintenance, you can preventative maintenance microgrants. You can click into all of these and it will tell you more about, take you to the pages, tell you more about the grants. But the grants that are offered through Maintenance Booker are the preventative maintenance microgrants, and they are for carrying out specific maintenance services like gutter clearance, like lightning protection inspections, up to the cost of £1,000. And the grant that you can get is up to £500. So if you click into these pages, you'll find out more about the preventative maintenance microgrants, how you apply. They're very easy to apply for these ones, and it's to try and encourage more churches to carry out these regular maintenance tasks. Foundation grants for maintenance, these are for investigative works or small repairs costing up to £10,000. So there may be a number of repairs that you need doing. You can get a grant from between £500 and £5,000 towards that work. National Churches Trust only ever provide a grant of up to 50% of the total cost of the project. So you would have to look elsewhere for other grants or match fund it from your reserves if you have any. The Gateway grant, this is for a much bigger grant. They have introduced recently that you can apply for essential maintenance works here, but it's for works up to between £10,000 and £100,000. The grant size, though, is only between £3,000 and £10,000. So again, you would need to have more money elsewhere, match funding. Works must be specified in a quinquennial report or in a survey that you've had done, and you must show evidence of actually maintenance planning. So that checklist that I mentioned at the beginning would be, would be a good example of that. Other grants you can have a look at. The Charitable Grants for Churches is a document that is available on the Parish Resources website, and there is a link to this that you can click into. It's a big document, it's about 80 pages long, and there are lots of grants in here, and they're categorised into different areas. You can download the document rather than print it out, and that's a really good one to have a look at. There's also the Heritage Funding Directory, which is available at this link. You can click into the picture and it will take you to the correct pages. That's a good place to start as well. Some of the grants are a little bit out of date on there, but it's free to look at. So it's worth having a look at that one. And if I can give you some stop press news, the diocese itself is going to be introducing some small grants in the very near future. It is coming soon. We're just finalising the criteria for this grant. Last year we had the mission grants. This year we're going to be doing grants for church buildings, and parishes will be able to apply for up to a grant of £5,000 per parish. So that is something to look out for, and we will be publicising that as soon as it's available, but it is going to be in the next few weeks. So that's something to look out for. Yorkshire Historic Churches Trust is another one that you can have a look at. If you fall within the red boundary on this map here, then you are eligible to apply for this grant. The next deadline is the 26th of February, and then it's August. So there's a little bit of time there before August if you've got anything that you want to apply for. You do have to have applied to other grant funders, though, before you go to the YHCT. They like to see that you have a genuine shortfall in funding and that you've been actively fundraising. But have a look at this link here. There's some really good guidance notes there. They do offer grants for repairs and restoration as well of things within your church, stained glass or hatchments, that sort of thing. So do have a look at that grant. It's by no means all of the grants available, but it's to give you a start. Other areas that you can have a look at for more resources, have a look at the church care calendar of care that I mentioned earlier, which is available at this link. There's ICON, the Institute of Conservation. There's a conservation register that you can have a look at for specialist conservation services. There's also, as I said, the Diocese of Leeds itself, their diocesan website. You can have a look at the pages there, and the DAC pages have got lots of guidance there to help you and to point and to signpost you to further resources. And there's a couple of videos you might want to have a look at. I mentioned one of them earlier about water ingress in your church. There's also one that National Churches Trust have produced on advice on rainwater goods. That's actually a video I did a few years ago when I worked for the National Churches Trust. So have a look at these. There's a link here for them. And by no means least, there's the Society for the Protection of Ancient Buildings, or SPAB. They have some really good pages called Maintenance Matters, and lots of guidance notes on there that you can have a look at as well. So I hope that's given you a flavour. I'm now going to move on to and let Stephen take over.
Right. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much, Janet. You've gone into plenty of detail there on what needs to be done. So I'm just moving a bit more onto the how, or at least how to get permission. My slot will be somewhat shorter, I assure you. So the good news is that a lot of basic maintenance can be done under what we call List A, which is basically you don't need permission. So that's things like fixing a loose slate, repairing a leaking gutter, doing very small amounts of pointing here and there, that kind of thing. And for anything like that, we just suggest that you record it in the church logbook, so you've got a record of what's been done when. You can now use the online faculty system to record work done under List A. That's very quick. You don't need to upload any documents, it's literally just a one-line entry equivalent to putting it in your logbook. And we encourage you to do that, but it's not compulsory. Next slide, please. If you've got an emergency, so if there's any sort of sudden damage that needs putting right straight away, or if there's a health and safety issue identified, and it's something more than List A maintenance work to fix it, then we would suggest you contact the diocesan registry on that number. The Chancellor is pretty good at giving permission to go ahead with that kind of work. If it's minor, he'll just say, he'll give you what's called a minor works direction, which is basically just saying go ahead and do it. If it's something a bit more significant, he might grant an interim faculty, which means go ahead and do it, but you need to follow up with a full faculty to confirm what's been done. Next slide, please. So anything that's not an emergency and which goes beyond basic regular maintenance, anything we're talking about today will for the most part will come under List B. List B is work that can be authorised by the Archdeacon. So that's the sort of thing illustrated here, where there's a broken drain pipe, you need a new section of drain pipe to put that right to stop the water getting into the stonework. Things like that can be authorised pretty quickly, within a couple of days. However, you do need to get the agreement, preferably of your PCC, or at least of a standing committee, to do the work. We'd need to see a quotation for the work from suitably experienced contractor. Most of the archdeacons in this diocese expect you to use the online faculty system to do List B applications, but it's not a lot of work. We can talk you through it if you need help. The Archdeacon of Pontefract is happy to take applications by email. Say permission can normally be given within a few days once you've got your quotation. Next slide, please. The only sort of repair works where a full faculty will be needed is if there's a change of material. So if, for instance, you've had lead stolen and want to replace it with zinc, or if you want to replace the cast iron gutters with aluminium ones or something like that, that would need a faculty. Or if the bit of a church being worked on has some historic significance, and that tends to be things like stained glass windows. So if it's a significant repair to a stained glass window, that may need a faculty. But if you're in any doubt, ask us. But in any case, if you put in for a List B and we look at it and decide that it can't be List B, then that application can be converted into a faculty application, so you can just carry on from where you left off. It won't be wasted work. The other example is where work has already been completed. So if you've gone ahead and done some urgent repairs and not got the Chancellor's permission in advance, then it will need a full faculty to retrospectively get permission for that. We prefer to avoid that situation because not only is it extra paperwork for you, it's also an additional cost. And we're moving towards, it's not yet a policy, but we're moving towards a position where it's policy that PCCs have to pay the cost, the legal fees for a faculty in that situation where work has been done without getting permission first. So that's something else to bear in mind. Most faculties, the diocese covers the cost of the fees. Next slide. Thanks. The other thing I want to talk about is the quinquennial report. So hopefully you're all aware of this. It's a report that's done by a qualified surveyor or architect once every 5 years. The point of it is to record the condition of the building in perhaps more detail than the church wardens might feel that they're able to do. So the surveyor will go into great detail and say, there are slipped slates here and there, there's this bit of pointing that needs doing, there's this feature here that is not dangerous yet but could become dangerous in a few years' time and needs looking at. There's evidence here of a problem with a roof that needs investigating, that sort of thing. But it is a condition survey, it's not a specification, and that's important to remember. So when you come to put in your List B application, it's not enough just to say the quinquennial surveyor said it needs doing. We do need to see details of exactly where the problem is, exactly what materials are being used, and usually a quotation for the work as well. The QI report will prioritise the work. It'll say this work needs doing within 12 months, here's some that needs doing in 2 years, here's what needs doing before the next report in 5 years' time, and here are some suggestions for improvement that are not essential but you might want to think about. The architect or surveyor will also give some estimate of cost for those works, not necessarily precise, but enough to inform the PCC and help you to budget. Because the idea is that when you get your report, you look through the recommendations, you look through the costs and say, right, over the next 5 years, this is what we need to do, this is how much it's going to cost us. So let's start planning now to raise the money to do that, even if the work's not going to be done for a few years. The report will also include standard sections with general advice on maintenance, covering some of the things we've talked about today, safety issues, and in the latest change to the guidelines, the QI report should address environmental matters as well, saying where there are inefficiencies, where you can save energy, how the churchyard could better be used as an environmental habitat, that kind of thing. And if you go on the DAC section of the website, there is further guidance on all of this and on how to work with your architect to get the most out of your building. Next slide, please. So the inspecting architect is one of the key stakeholders in your building, along with the PCC itself. Particularly when it comes to a faculty application, but sometimes for List B, if it's more than just straightforward work, we would expect to see the architect has either specified the work or at least has been informed and given the opportunity to comment on the work. And quite simply, it's just a lot easier if we get an architect's drawing like the one on the right, rather than just a few sentences of description which are rather vague about what needs to be done. Something like that is very clear and will be very quickly approved. It's worth the money of just asking your architect to do a drawing for you when work needs doing. Another stakeholder is your insurance company. There are certain types of work where you're required to inform them. And also, of course, in some instances, particularly where damage has been caused by a sudden event such as a storm, then you may be able to claim on your insurance. but there again, they will often want to see that your architect is involved in specifying the repairs before they will offer the amount of money towards that. And then also, as Janet mentioned earlier, the DAC has lists of specialist contractors and conservators in various areas of work. These are people we know have worked on church buildings or other listed buildings and have done a good job. They're not approved lists. You don't have to stick to our list, but it's sometimes a useful starting place if you need to get a couple of quotations. Next. And also, as Janet mentioned earlier, the local authority are sometimes a stakeholder, most often where we're dealing with a closed churchyard, where very often they have the responsibility for things like the safety of trees and paths and churchyard walls, that kind of thing, as well as the ongoing grass cutting that they usually do. We have had some difficulties recently, particularly with Leeds City Council, about getting them to do works which are their responsibility, but most of the others we deal with are quite good at it. The local authority, of course, might also need to be consulted on anything that's going to need planning permission, but that's unlikely to be a problem with maintenance. That's normally where you're getting into bigger sort of improvement works on the church. Next, please. Can we have the next slide, please, Janet? Yeah, thanks. There we are. So that's the end of our presentation. You've got contact details for the two of us. From next week, Janet and one of my colleagues called Rob are also going to be supporting the DAC team in the work that we do for the rest of this year. Some of you will have met my colleague Jen Reed. She's actually changing roles within the diocese at the moment. So you'll be dealing with me, Janet, Rob, and of course Lisa McIntyre, the DAC secretary, when you come to put in for permissions. So that's the team, and we look forward to hearing from you.